we're going to go ahead and get started. Today's Cosmos Campfire is in regards to the budget management, which is a tab on the project overview. I am Lexi. I cover off all of the customer support and success within Aprika, and we're going on almost 2 years with Aprika now. Today on the demo, we are going to cover setting up your budget items and review how they can be leveraged to help you keep track of your budget, your project budgets, and give you a more granular look at the project budget as well. Today, we're going to create some budget items, relate those actions on a project to budget items, as well as purchase orders. We are going to log some time and create some expenses and show how you can track material costs to your budget items as well. After we get everything set up, we're going to review our scheduled, completed, and forecast budget figures, and those will be on the budget tab of your project overview. All right, so let's go ahead and get into this demo. As usual, if you have any questions, please feel free to enter them into the chat. We will have an open hours session at the end of this webinar if you have any further questions. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so I went ahead and set up a project. In this project example, we are going to be preparing for an annual conference. So I have already set up my milestones and actions on this project in regards to preparing for the annual conference. And that goes into detail on creating a guest list, finding a venue, preparing materials, creating a volunteer list, and hiring waitering staff, as well as some marketing, so creating invitations and so forth. And as we also have some catering, so we want to make sure we get our purchase order items related in regards to making payments towards catering as well. So the first thing you'll need to know is that the budget tab is unrelated to your project budget field on your project. So this is a manual field to guesstimate the project budget, but the budgets tab is going to go into further detail. So right now I have one budget item created here, but I will go ahead and set up the rest of my budget items for this project, and then get into how to relate that to the items on your project. All right, so we have the catering. This isn't related to any of the categories that I have available, so I will not relate it to a category here. We have a cost budget of 10,000, I'm sorry, 5,000, but I'm gonna update this to 10,000 because that's what I have it set to for the milestone, my catering milestone on this project. So if you missed where I selected the Manage Budgets button to the right corner, and this is how you will create your budget items for your project. Okay, so I have catering, I have the marketing, and you can go ahead and enter a billable and cost budget. I believe I have this cost budget at 5,000 for the project. So when you create a budget item in this top row here, you'll either need to select this plus symbol to create the item or select enter. If you hit the add rows item at the bottom, this is just going to add another row here. So it's not going to create your item from up here. It's just going to add another row. And we have our resource planning. Just going to save this because I completely forgot the last milestone name, preparations. Sorry about that, guys. So I'm going to also create a preparations budget item. So your naming conventions here can be anything. It doesn't have to specifically relate to the milestone or anything like that. If your budget items relate more to the categories, you can use those naming conventions. But here, just for ease of this setting up the project, I am just going to go ahead and use the milestone names. Create that budget item. If you need to manage any of your budget items on your project, you would go to that manage budgets button again. So now we can see that we have our budget items created. We get a summary here, a category summary. So, which of the categories does each of the budget items relate to? You also get a profit and loss summary, your GM percentage, as well as a variance summary for your total, your scheduled, completed, and your forecasted amounts here. Okay. So another thing to note on your budget tab is that you have quite a few different views to view the information for your budgets. So the all view here, the all tab, is going to show you all of the available fields on the budget items to review. So your scheduled expenses, your scheduled billable and cost hours, as well as your materials, and then any completed expenses and so forth. But if you wanted to just drill down into specific information, for example, I might want to see just my scheduled items, then you can select the scheduled tab. If I wanted to just see the profit and loss breakdown, I can select profit and loss here, and so forth on your tabs. Right now, I haven't related the budget items to my actions on my project, so I'm not seeing any scheduled values. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do now. I recommend doing so from the Create Actions page because that allows you to see all of the actions that you have on your project. Once you create your budget items, you'll get this budget item field here that you can populate. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and relate my budget items to my actions. And then after we get this finished off, we're going to go back to that budgets tab and see how this affected the project. All right, so I've saved that. We're going to go back to the budget tab and check out the scheduled values. So I don't have a rate set up on this project, so there's not a value schedule, our scheduled value yet. But you can see I do have it related to the items, so it is showing me a figure for that as well. All right, so now that we have our budget items related to our actions, if I am to log time against an action, for example, so I've been searching around for a catering company to cater for this event. And I've completed a total hour, 5 hours towards that task. So just gonna log some time here. You can also, if there are any material costs that are associated with this task, you would go ahead and enter that on your time log because that is going to roll up to your action, which is going to roll up to your budget items. So if you have any material costs, here's where you will associate that. I'm just going to put a value here just so that we can see how that rolls up. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and log that time. I don't have any approvals required for my roll record, so it's going to automatically be approved. All right, so let's just refresh our project. And check out how that has affected our budget here. All right, so right now we're seeing our schedule. Let's check out the completed values. Again, so I don't have any rates on that action. I will need to add my project financials information to see the hourly rate. So I'm going to do that in just a second so that we can see that update. However, I do have the materials cost. You can see that has now rolled up from the time log that we just logged against the action. And now we can see the total completed billable costs and billable and cost values against that budget item. Okay. I also have created an expense against this project already. And this is just incurred by Andy, who did some traveling in order to find the catering. So on his expense record, I've made sure to relate that to the budget item that it corresponds with. And so that's why we see that value already on the budget item. We also have a purchase order for the catering. So any cost amounts that are related in, for example, this purchase order is for Panera Catering. We have our amount that has been populated from our purchase order item. And then once this is paid, all of that will roll up to our budget item as well. So I have this related to a expense, but this is also directly related to our project. So I'll show you that in our project related list as well. So just taking a look at that purchase order item that is related here. So we're going to mark this as paid in full, amount paid, 2,500 to our Panera Bread's catering service. All right, and just going back to our project. I'm just going to specify the rates for this project now that we're back on this project detail. We're going to have a standard rate. This is the day rate. So once I save, the hourly rate is going to be populated here. All right, and going back to our budget items. So now we have some expenses, we have some purchase orders. We also have the hours that have been logged against our budget items. And again, that's just going to roll up. So if I am logging against a certain action and I create a time log, it's going to roll up to the budget item that is related to that action. I will need to force a financial recalculation since I've added rate values after my actions have already been associated to this project. All right. I didn't associate a billable budget for the catering, and that is why I'm seeing a negative profit and loss amount and so forth on this So let's just take a look back at our schedule now that we have the rates associated to the project. You can see now that I've forced a financial recalculation, we get our hours scheduled billable and our cost scheduled amounts. We have that scheduled expense. And then once that expense has been paid, it would be moved over from scheduled to completed. We didn't have any scheduled material costs because I didn't specify on my actions a scheduled material cost. I can do that as well. We also see our total scheduled billable and cost values. That would be according to the hours that I have associated on my actions and within regards to the rates that are specified on my project. How will that total up to our scheduled values here? Get your profit and loss values, your GM percentage, and your variance as well. So as the project continues and I continue to relate or log more time against the actions, that will bring in my material cost, or if I have any time logs that have hour values, that will roll up to my budget items, again, as I've related them on the Create Actions page. Okay. Does anyone have any questions so far on the budget items? Any questions on relating the purchase orders or the expenses to my budget items? You can also create an expense, since I've gone ahead and created this previous expense before the call here. So we might have some expenses related to preparations. I can go ahead and relate it directly to my budget item. It's been incurred by Andy, who has done so on the 19th of May. And this would be in relation to finding those, hiring wait staff for this event. So I can specify a cost. I'm actually going to put this as an amount, not a cost amount. He also had to drive 100 miles. So I'm going to set this to approved. And I'm going to mark this as outstanding. So this is going to be a scheduled. Okay, it's not going to let me create the expense for the distance as well. So the payment status on this expense is outstanding. So let's take a look at how that has affected our budget item. All right, so now for preparations, we see that that expense, since it's still outstanding, is in our scheduled expenses. And once that expense has been marked paid, it will roll up to the completed values for that budget item. And now see that the expense has rolled up to the completed expenses for this budget item. So that will wrap up for creating your budget items and relating your project related items to your budget items. Does anyone have any questions unrelated to budget management? All right, so we don't have any questions in chat or in the Q&A box, so I will go ahead and wrap up this session. If you have any further questions or require support, please feel free to get in touch. You can email us at support@aprika.com or submit a ticket on our website. Thank you so much for joining, and please feel free to send any suggestions for further Cosmo campfires.